This is Sky News at 12. Our top stories. An 18-year-old man is arrested in Dover over the Parsons Green tube attack. The UK's alert level remains at its highest level, with hundreds of extra police officers patrolling the transport network. There's an armed presence in cities across the country. The Prime Minister has also called in the army. We're live at Scotland Yard with the latest developments in the police operation. Also ahead, is this a leadership bid? Boris Johnson vows the NHS will get that extra £350 million. Ryanair cancels up to 50 flights a day for the next 6 weeks to clear a backlog of leave for its crew. And tributes have been paid to the actor Harry Dean Stanton, who's died at the age of 91. A very good afternoon to you. An 18-year-old man has been arrested in the port area of Dover in connection with the explosion on a London Underground train at Parsons Green, in which 30 people were hurt. The suspect is being moved to a South London police station. The terror threat level remains critical, meaning another attack is expected imminently as armed police and military personnel join police patrolling the country this weekend. Let's go now to Scotland Yard and our correspondent Enda Brady. And Enda, in the last hour or so, the first arrest has been made.
Yes, this remains a fast-paced investigation, and there was a dramatic development this morning with that arrest, which we understand took place in the port area of Dover, and to a website, ukpoliceimageappeal.co.uk.
OK, Enda, thanks very much for that update there. Now, as you were hearing, there has been an arrest made, an 18-year-old man in the Dover area in connection to that attack at Parsons Green yesterday morning. And security has really been ramped up and down the country. Let's get more now about the military personnel on the streets. Phil Campion is a retired SAS trooper and he joins us live from Athens. A very good afternoon to you, Phil. We've been looking at pictures this morning of police on the streets of Birmingham. Are armed police on things like trains an answer to tackling extremism?
100%. I think we need to see more of it. And what I hope doesn't happen this time is we see it for 5 minutes after the event, and then, you know, tomorrow, the next day or the day after, they'll just go, right, that's a wrap, lads, in you go, back to camp and call it a day. Because this problem is not going away, OK? This problem is here and it needs sorting out. And in the interim, like I say, you know, various groups are calling for this 3,000 people to be lifted off the streets. I myself the other week tweeted and said, you know, this is not over, expect an attack, especially on a train. So, you know, it seems that we're doing the same thing again. Cobra's been called, we've upped the ante a little bit, and now we're just going to go and sit down again. No, let's keep the ante going this time. You know, you've got people all over the country now who are a lot more worried, you know, and they're not being listened to. You know, the FLA, the cabbies, the veterans, they're all out on the streets marching and that sort of stuff, and nobody's listening to them, OK? And these events are still happening. So we need now for this ante to be upped and continued. Not just up to then.
I suppose the problem is people don't want to be cowed. People want to continue with their day-to-day activities. So there's got to be a balancing act, surely, hasn't there, between...
There does have to be a balancing act. But, you know, at the same time, we're being told that there are 3,000 people who are part of this balancing act that are making it unstable, OK? So we need to get those out of the way. And there's various things we should be doing now to give people more confidence in the system. Because every time we have an incident, 10 minutes later, there's another one, and the same thing happens. And we've got ourselves into this little loop of sort of like attack, talk, carry on, attack, talk, carry on. And it doesn't work. So we need to attack, talk, do something, then carry on, OK? Because we're not doing it, are we?
OK, and after most terror attacks, there's been a lot of activity. The police have come out, there's raids, things like that. That happened with Manchester and the London Bridge attacks. This time, they've kept very quiet-lipped. Why do you think that is?
I think they need to keep quiet-lipped. You know, you can do stuff without being seen all the time. OK, you need to up the ante. Now, there are some positives to be taken from this last attack. The device they used was very crude, which says to me they can't get their hands on the stuff that they want. You know, that was a proper pound shop effort, to be honest. It wasn't a very good device at all, was it? So they can't get the gear that they want. There's no weapons. There's no follow-up. They haven't got the belly to stay around. They did the off. They ran away. So there's a lot of positives saying that the security services are doing a lot of stuff and they're doing it very well. But unfortunately, the security services that are running towards these events, the MPs are running away. stand behind our security services, back them up, give them what they need, give them the extra kit, equipment, manpower, throw some money at this, and let's end this now, instead of having this repeated stupidity and nonsense going on and on and on and on.
And what did you make of President Trump's intervention yesterday when he said he believed that Scotland Yard knew the person responsible?
Do you know what? I actually agree with him. They probably did. And we should have probably jumped on that person when Manchester went off or when 7-Eleven went off, and we didn't, OK? So listen to Trump. You know, he's a big man, all right? Listen to Trump, OK? Listen to Big Phil and do something about it, all right? Do something about it. Because if it transpires that we did know these people again, you know, this is ludicrous. Every 5 minutes we've got an incident, and you say people want to cut about their lives normally. We're not letting them do that. We've got to sort this out, you know?
OK, Phil Campion, retired SAS trooper, thanks ever so much for your thoughts. Appreciate that.
Thanks very much.
Now, Boris Johnson has made a major intervention on Brexit just days before the Prime Minister is due to make an important speech about her vision for Britain after the country leaves the European Union. In a 4,000-word article in The Telegraph, the Foreign Secretary restated his claim during the referendum campaign that the £350 million a week currently sent to Brussels should be directed to fund the NHS. Well, joining us live from Westminster is our political correspondent Tamara Cohen. Tamara, very bold comments here from Boris Johnson, which don't really chime with Theresa May's.
No, quite an extraordinary intervention, especially as the Prime Minister is about to make a major speech on Brexit in Florence this week. And in this article is the return of the £350 million. You'll remember it from the bus, which you can see on your screens now.
OK, thanks very much, Tamara. Appreciate that. Police officers have used tear gas to try to disperse crowds at a large protest in St. Louis in the United States. It began after a white former police officer was found not guilty of the murder of a black suspect. 2 police officers have been taken to hospital after being hit by bricks, and at least 13 people have been arrested. The former police officer, Jason Stockley, told a court that he shot Anthony Lamar Smith in 2011 because he thought the drug suspect was reaching for a gun. The US credit reporting agency Equifax has revealed that almost 400,000 Britons have been affected by their data breach. The agency said that British information stolen included names, dates of birth, email addresses and telephone numbers, but no financial data was involved. Hollywood movie star Harry Dean Stanton, who's died at the age of 91. The actor was best known for his roles in Twin Peaks, Pretty in Pink and Repo Man, and also starred in The Godfather 2 and Alien, but didn't find fame until he turned 58 when he played the leading man in the film Paris, Texas. David Lynch, who directed Stanton in Twin Peaks, has paid tribute to him. He has said the great Harry Dean Stanton has left us. There went a great one. There's nobody like Harry Dean. Everyone loved him, and with good reason. He was a great actor, actually beyond great, and a great human being. So great to be around him. He went on to say, "You are really going to be missed, Harry Dean. Loads of love to you wherever you are now." Now, Ryanair has announced it's cancelling 40 to 50 flights a day for the next 6 weeks. The budget airline said it was cutting less than 2% of all departures to clear a backlog of leave for its crew, as passengers say they've been left stranded abroad. Well, our reporter, Katerina Vitozzi, joins us now. And what kind of impact is this likely to have for customers?
Well, Ryanair have been trying to downplay this. They say that they operate more than 2,500 flights a day, and the affected flights will only be between 40 and 50 of their normal schedules. But of course, if you're one of those people that are affected, the estimates that it'll be around 9,000 people who are affected by the cancellation of these flights. That will go up until the end of October. It's causing a lot of travel disruption. Now, Ryanair say they're cancelling the flights because they're, well, there's a couple of reasons. First, they're trying to get their punctuality targets back up. They've been affected by strikes and poor weather over the first couple of weeks in September. So by cancelling flights that they say they aren't able to keep to time, they can sort of improve that punctuality rate. This is what the airline have said. We have operated a record schedule during the peak summer months of July and August, but must now allocate annual leave to pilots and cabin crew in September and October. We apologise sincerely to to the small number of customers affected by these cancellations, and we will be doing our utmost to arrange alternative flights and or full refunds for them. However, the problem is that lots of passengers say they don't know if their flight is going to be cancelled. The airline says so far they've sent emails to passengers who've got flights up to Wednesday, that's the 20th. Beyond that, some people don't know whether they will be flying, so there's a lot of uncertain passengers in the future who don't know whether they're going to be getting to their destinations of choice. And of course, some passengers who are currently overseas trying to get back to the UK who've seen their return flights cancelled. So a lot of disruption and some very confused and angry people as well.
Headache for many, I'm sure. Thanks ever so much for that. Now, North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to complete his country's nuclear program, saying it will achieve equilibrium with the United States. The threat comes as China's ambassador to Washington has told America to stop making threats over North Korea after the country fired another ballistic missile over Japan. Our US correspondent Mark Austin has this report.
The North Koreans say these pictures show the launch of the ballistic missile, the latest and perhaps most worrying act of defiance against America and its regional allies. Worrying because this missile seems to have flown further than any previous test. People celebrate each test. For them, it is the way to survival against what they perceive to be an evil enemy. Kim is calling Donald Trump's bluff, challenging, almost teasing the West. The question is, where will it all end? Mark Austin, Sky News in Washington.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up, volunteers sign up to clear plastic from UK beaches. We'll have more on that after the break.
Multi-cover your home and cars for guaranteed discounts.
Now, thousands of volunteers will be heading to beaches across the UK today to help clear up the rubbish. The annual event by the Marine Conservation Society will help to collect data on litter levels, with plastic debris the most common item found. Sky's Ocean Rescue has been raising awareness for the campaign, as Sarah Hajabagheri reports.
In the sunshine, this beach in Eastney looks picturesque.
Seeing the scale of the problem and then calling for the solutions and the action that we need from governments and major businesses to really stop that plastic flowing into the ocean in the first place.
And since doing this campaign here at Sky, I mean, I've learnt so much about it, because some of the plastic isn't really visible to the naked eye, is it? You get these little nurdles, which are tiny bits of plastic, just little balls used in construction. So the scale of the problem, many things you can't see, and fibres from your clothes as well.
Well, exactly. There are so many sources of plastic that are ending up in the ocean. And really a huge part of the problem is single-use packaging. So it's everyday items like plastic bottles, plastic bags, as well as these smaller sources. And it's very easy, actually, for us to act and to help end that era of single-use plastic packaging. We've already seen that government interventions have been successful. We've heard that the plastic bag charge nearly halved the amount of plastic bags that are being found washed up on UK beaches. And I think given that there's now growing momentum for other options such as deposit return schemes now being introduced in Scotland, we're starting to see the tide really turn on this problem. But obviously there's so much more that we need to see, and particularly major businesses like Coca-Cola, for example, who sell over 100 billion single-use plastic bottles every single year. They need to stop washing their hands of the problem, because when they do that, the problem washes up on our beaches.
And do you think we are a bit backwards at the moment in that we should adopt this deposit return scheme now?
I think there's really strong evidence to show that deposit return schemes across the world have worked really well. You look at Germany and parts of Scandinavia, where recycling and collection rates for drinks containers are over 80%, even up to 95%. Whereas in the UK, 16 million plastic bottles are just being dumped in our environment every single day. It's a kind of scheme that a lot of people remember.
OK, thank you. I think we have just lost you there, but oh, there you are again. Thanks ever so much for speaking to us. Appreciate your time. Now you're watching Sky News. Let's find out what's coming up in the sport.
In the sport at 2:45, we'll bring you the latest on Roy's return as Hodgson takes charge of his first Crystal Palace match against Southampton. That kicks off in a few minutes' time.
Let's take a look at the weather now, shall we?
From warm, flowing island winds to an enchanting desert breeze.
There'll be sunny spells and a scattering of showers for most areas today and some more general rain in the west. It'll be rather cool everywhere with a northerly breeze. Scotland and central and eastern England will see showers developing widely for a time this afternoon, but there will be sunny spells between, and Scotland and northern England will tend to dry up later on. Northern Ireland will be cloudy and wet for a time, but the cloud will break and the rain will give way to more scattered showers later on.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up, after a man is arrested over the Parsons Green attack, how is Britain best protected from terrorism?
Sports.
You're watching Sky News. The headlines. An 18-year-old man has been arrested in the port area of Dover in connection with the explosion on a London Underground train at Parsons Green. Boris Johnson says that the NHS will get the £350 million extra money a week, as promised in the most controversial referendum campaign pledge. And Ryanair says it's cancelling 50 flights a day for the next 6 weeks to clear a backlog of leave for its crew. Now I think we can show you some pictures of Amber Rudd arriving at an emergency meeting. This is being held by the government about 1 o'clock, I believe, discussing the latest developments on that terror attack yesterday at Parsons Green on that tube train where 30 people were injured. But there is Amber Rudd arriving there in central London in the past few minutes. Now, we have had a statement from the Mayor of London in the last few minutes or so. Sadiq Khan has said the police investigation is ongoing and there will be a significant amount of activity today and over the days ahead. I'm sure I speak for London when I say we are incredibly grateful to the police and intelligence services for doing everything possible to keep Londoners safe. And he goes on to say it's important that all remain alert and vigilant. There will be an increased police presence across London today and over this weekend, including additional armed officers. They are there to keep us safe. London will never be intimidated by terrorism, he says. We will always defeat those who seek to harm us and destroy our way of life. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Mark White is in central London for us now. Mark, in the last hour or so there has been an arrest, but other than that, the police remaining pretty tight-lipped, which is rather unusual.
Well, there is still a fast-moving investigation underway with potential for other suspects that they need to round up.
OK, thanks very much for that update there. Let's go live now to Hove, where I'm joined by Dr. Anthony Richards, a Fellow of the Terrorism Research Centre at the University of East London. A very good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us. It's very interesting, isn't it, that we haven't had too many updates from the police as yet, but obviously this significant development in the last hour or so, they have made an arrest.
Yes, it is. I think it's also quite unusual that we have had no confirmation of the motivation for this attack, which is interesting. But of course, I think that the reasoning behind this lack of information is that the police and the authorities want to search out as many details as possible about any possible connections. And of course, they don't want to give a tip-off to anybody else who might know this individual by alerting them that they've arrested them.
And we have seen pictures today from Birmingham of armed police. We've seen that there will be higher security on the streets. What is the answer? Because we're seeing more and more attacks of this kind across Britain.
Yes, we don't, nobody likes to see the response to terrorism militarised in our streets. So I have to say that this is a police armed response, not the army on the streets, of course, which is much more preferable. The answer, to some degree, of course, is to try and keep up the intelligence effort in terms of trying to prevent attacks like these. Of course, the intelligence agencies cannot prevent everything. In fact, over the last sort of decade or so, our intelligence agencies have been very successful and to a large extent are the envy of the rest of the world in terms of preventing major terrorist attacks. But we can't prevent everything. Unfortunately, because of the decentralized nature of the threat, it means that you might not get intelligence on some plots because with a more coordinated or sophisticated or professional type of attack, there is potential for more intelligence leaks, intelligence information. But unfortunately, with a sort of lower level, perhaps slightly more amateurish attacks, whether it's through the use of knives, guns, or indeed crudely put together improvised explosive devices, it's very, very difficult to prevent everything.
And in this attack yesterday in Fulham, the device didn't detonate, we understand, as it was supposed to. Does that suggest that this was not necessarily a sophisticated plot?
I think it was a very, very dangerous plot, even if it wasn't the most professional of plots. And perhaps it was actually put on the train in a rather hurried fashion. It's a very unusual way to try and plant an explosive device like this. As you say, it not only did it not detonate properly, I suspect it detonated not at the right time either.
OK, thanks ever so much for your expertise this afternoon. Appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
Now, Boris Johnson has made a major intervention on Brexit just days before the Prime Minister is due to make an important speech about her vision for Britain after the country leaves the European Union. In a 4,000-word article in The Telegraph, the Foreign Secretary restated his claim during the referendum campaign that the £350 million a week currently sent to Brussels should be directed to fund the NHS. Well, Tom Brake is the Liberal Democrats' Brexit spokesperson. He joins us from Bournemouth now, where the party's autumn conference is starting today. Thanks for your time this afternoon. Very bold comments from Boris Johnson today that don't really chime with the Prime Minister's.
No, they don't. And of course, what is very clear is that this is actually about Boris Johnson's bid to become the leader of the Conservative Party and our Prime Minister. Boris Johnson knows that £350 million a week is never going to come to the NHS. What's actually happened already in the NHS is that, for instance, we have seen a steep fall in the number of nurses coming to the UK from EU countries, and therefore what NHS trusts are having to do is to recruit nurses from India and the Philippines, and the only difference there is that it is costing them £1,000 a visa to recruit those nurses, whereas when they came from the EU there was no charge. So there will not be £350 million a week for the NHS.
Do you think this is Boris Johnson formally plotting a leadership bid?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Is this Boris Johnson putting forward a leadership bid, or at least paving the way for one?